We're going to start with you guys just kind of go down tell us what you do, tell us who you are, and we'll get started that way. Luke, you start us out there, buddy.
Ooh, we got? Okay, sweet. Again, my name is Luke Humbrecht. I have a business called VoiceCraft. It's a marketing consulting business, and again, many businesses have great products and services, but their voice is getting lost in a noisy world. So I help them clarify their message through copywriting, website makeover, all kinds of things to help brands communicate more clearly.
Again, my name is Cameron Yoder, here with Viral Launch, and you've already heard what we do, but again, just to iterate around this discussion, we've had the opportunity to see a lot of brands succeed and a lot of brands fail. So that is our perspective.
Hi, I'm Rachel Greer. I am the founder of Cascadia Seller Solutions. We help brands succeed on Amazon. And I was at Amazon for 8 years and spent about 4 of that working on Amazon Basics and other Amazon brands.
Travis Luther, Queen Anne Pillow. I don't have anything to sell you.
Maybe a pillow?
Except the pillows.
Okay, so I'm gonna kind of give you guys a softball, and feel free. You guys can, whoever wants to answer. If we have multiple answers to a question, that's totally great. But I know I have spoken or I've listened to some launch podcasts. They have a great podcast, by the way. And I've heard you guys specifically talk about, like in the realm of Amazon and brand building on Amazon, and like I think kind of one of the buzzwords in our community is we all want to go off Amazon with our products. If we have a private label product, or if we're pitching to a wholesale or a potential wholesale client, we want to go off Amazon. We want to have these other channels that we can, sell on, because we don't want to be dependent on Amazon because we're all afraid of getting suspended, and then all of a sudden all of our income goes away. So we want to have these other channels to maybe support us. But I've heard Casey, basically he's like, I think that's a waste of time. I think you should go all in on Amazon, strike while the iron's hot, which I think is great advice. But I also know that there's some competing voices on this panel. So I would like to ask you guys to maybe just begin the conversation with discussing that. Is it a valid move as a business to go off Amazon, or is it silly to not waste, or do you feel like maybe it's a waste of resources and you should really focus on Amazon? Compare and contrast. Do you guys need boxing gloves, or are we? Okay, all right, cool. Go ahead.
I'm happy to start with that. So I, having worked at Amazon, I have I think a somewhat unique perspective on how people at Amazon see all of their partners and people who help make them money. And kind of see working with Amazon, have you ever been in the first stages of a divorce and you have to rely on the person that you made children with, that that's an important person in your life, but you have to be really careful of them because they could stab you in the back at any minute because the divorce is. That's Amazon for you guys. So that's so the idea that you would put all your eggs in that basket and be completely dependent on this person who can destroy you at any minute, to me is like, absolutely not, but I'm kind of a controlling person and I would never want to do that. So to me, off Amazon is a no-brainer because you need to have something to protect yourself in the case of something really bad happening. And a big part of our business when we first started out was handling suspensions. And so handling those made me extremely cautious. When I was actually at Amazon, we did a lot of shutdowns of sellers, and in some cases, we specifically annotated on the account that they were never to be reopened again. Didn't matter what they did, didn't matter what they tried to fix, they were never to be reopened again because of what they did. So when you're working with a company that can make that decision, you can't find out that that's what happened. You don't know that there was an internal employee who said, no, this seller is absolutely no longer ever permitted to sell on Amazon again. I wouldn't put all my eggs in that basket. Just wouldn't do it. Plus, you have different opportunities off of Amazon, different ways to make money, different ways to grow your brand. I think the biggest thing that I've seen recently that some of our clients have done really well is licensing. And with licensing, you can get into a lot of different places that aren't Amazon.
I think Amazon's great, and we do a lot of business on Amazon, but I also think that if you are building a brand, that you need to have a play that's bigger than Amazon. And I think if you're starting with Amazon, and this is certainly something that we're dealing with at Queen Anne Pillow, our smart move is to appreciate and recognize the success that Amazon has brought us, but how do we take those Amazon customers to the next level, which is to make them Queen Anne pillow customers? And what kind of systems and invitations can we put in place so the next time they make a purchase, they make it from us, and when they tell their friends about us, their friends also make the purchase from us. So that's what we're working on right now, and that's what I would encourage you to think about too.
Here we go. Oh, he's passing the mic. He's going to go last.
Yeah, I was talking with someone earlier, and they pointed out that part of the problem with relying on Amazon was that they don't have to think about what it would look like afterwards. Like the customers just kind of come to Amazon, so they don't have to think about building a brand afterwards, because that's happening right now. I would just say to gain an imagination, just like the others have mentioned, gain an imagination, even if it's not yet. How would you take a product and make it its own universe outside of the Amazon system? What would you have to change about the way you're talking about your product, the way you're marketing it, in order to reach the customers yourself? So I would say don't let the ease of Amazon stop you from having that conversation starting now.
If you listen to our podcast and just what Casey and I talk about, we've talked about this a lot. And again, we have the perspective of seeing a lot of successful sellers go through, yes, our system, but also just go through Amazon in general. And I really think this topic boils down to opportunity cost for everyone here. So where is your time most valuable? Right now, in this period of time, I am very much inclined to believe that Amazon, the opportunity is on Amazon specifically right now. I've seen sellers, a lot of sellers diversify, and typically it boils down to a fear of suspension on Amazon or a fear of losing everything that they have. And there are different ways to mitigate that risk specifically on Amazon, but I've seen big sellers, try to diversify their portfolio by going on to Walmart is a very specific example. It's just very specific. But diversify onto Walmart. And they made it took a lot of time, it took a lot of energy, it took a lot of resources, and they ended up making 2% of the sales that they're making on Amazon, right? And yes, they have their stuff or some of their things on Walmart, but they could have used all that time that it took, and it took a lot of time for this. I know a guy very well. He's a big seller, put all of his stuff on Walmart. Took a lot of time, took a lot of energy. That time, all of that money, all those resources could have been used to diversify on Amazon even more. Maybe that looks like creating more than one brand, so that or more than one storefront, so that if the storefront gets suspended or something like that, and there's a lot there too. I'm not trying to give you an answer or solution to just staying on Amazon. I think it all boils down to, I think you have to ask yourself where your time is most valuable. Right now, the Amazon opportunity is not going to last forever. And that's why I'm inclined to say that's why I'm inclined to talk with people, sellers, about focusing just on Amazon right now. Maybe in a year, it's going to look different. Maybe in 2 years, it's going to look different. But right now, it's a gold mine. Right now, the opportunity is just too good for me to say, yeah, go to Walmart. Put yourself on Walmart.
So opportunity cost. Does anybody else on the panel have any follow-up to or rebuttal or come on, get the gloves on. No, I'm just kidding. Does anyone want to comment on that? Because that's a great point, Cameron. Opportunity cost. Anyone else? Okay, so given opportunity cost as that's a great topic. What would you then recommend if we don't want to take that specific piece of advice and we still want to build a brand off of Amazon? With considering the opportunity cost, which channel or channels would you recommend that people begin with or start with and kind of launch first, I guess?
Well, there are some products that are just going to be very hard to be successful off of Amazon. So the low barriers to entry, the accessories, the phone chargers, those are not things that you're really going to be able to take over into the Google PPC world or the social world and make any kind of profit on. So I think the first question you have to ask yourself, even before should I build my brand off of Amazon, is do you have a product that has enough margin to do that? Queen Anne Pillow, Amazon is a 45, 55% partner with us, meaning Amazon gets 45 cents of basically every dollar. That's a lot of money, but that's still not as much as like Google would take. That's still not as much as a sale on social costs us. So Amazon is still probably the cheapest way for us to advertise and make sales, but we have a product that has enough margin and has a high enough retail price that we can also pursue building the brand off of that. I'm just coming back around to say, going off Amazon is not right for everybody if you don't have a product that has a lot of margin, and especially that if you're not the manufacturer of it. You can't really go off Amazon and compete on price like you do on Amazon because the advertising costs are just way too high.
Yeah, I would say the first place that I would recommend people to start if they're going off Amazon and they have a product that can do that, because that is the first thing that we look at when we're deciding whether or not to work with a potential brand, is we look at, is this something that can actually do well outside of Amazon, or is it one of these kind of things that only gets traffic because Amazon is the place to search for products? If that's the case, then there's really not much that we can do there. And what we found is the most effective in terms of growing an off-Amazon presence, the 2% on Walmart thing, that's absolutely what we found. Walmart's not great. I'm sure they're going to invest more money into it. They seem to be happy about throwing lots of money at a not very successful position at the moment. But as far as what will make our clients money, their own websites are doing the best. And what we found is that doing basically cold targeting on Facebook or Google is extremely expensive, and so we don't recommend that as an approach if you want to do that. So what we recommend is a content approach. So a lot of videos on social, a lot of blog posts, having your own YouTube channel. As soon as I start saying that, people's eyes glaze over because it's so much effort to create that kind of content and to maintain that kind of content and to make sure that you're updating it every week, sometimes multiple times a week. The kind of influencers that you think of, like Instagram influencers, they're posting not just every day, sometimes they're posting multiple times a day, and they're really engaging with their followers, and their followers are buying things because of what they're posting. So that has been most successful. There's one client that we're working with that's doing fairly well with tutorial content, and their product is a solution in the tutorial. So content seems to be fairly effective off of Amazon. Obviously, it doesn't really matter very much on Amazon. It's more about the keywords and whether the bullets and the EBC are good. But off of Amazon, you want organic search. You don't want to be paying for Google search. It's quite expensive.
I don't know. I'd really encourage everyone here to ask, if you're really considering going off of Amazon, consider the steps that maybe you haven't taken to optimize what you already have on Amazon. If you are really considering going off of Amazon, I've talked with multiple sellers who are absolutely killing it, who actually aren't even on Amazon because their product just doesn't fit. It's either something that they invented and made a really, really cool and great product. I'd say that's not very typical for someone to kill it in that way. But literally, I talked with a guy who was selling video game merch, right? And he makes this custom video game merch, would absolutely not do well on Amazon because of how specific it was. But he had his own website, and he drove Google traffic, Google ads, whatever. He did a lot to drive traffic to his own website. Absolutely killed it that way. He asked me if I would recommend him going to Amazon. And the answer was no, simply because people weren't searching for his stuff on Amazon. So in some cases, it's really hard for me to kind of be up here, hard for us to be up here and recommend, like, yes, this, besides Amazon, this one platform is what you should go to because it is so product dependent and product specific. I do, however, also want you to think about the amount of time that you've taken to learn the Amazon platform. Imagine trying to handle growth on Amazon while also learning a completely new platform that you're unfamiliar with. That's a pretty big thing to bite off and swallow. So I don't know. I would really encourage you to ask yourself what you've optimized so far and ask yourself how much time you have.
Cool. All right, so we'll open it up to the crowd. Anybody have a question for the panel on brand building or off Amazon brand building? Anything about brands? Someone over there.
So just a question. Just a question about brand building. If you've got multiple products that could be considered generic, do you recommend putting them all under one brand or building competing brands with yourself that are aligned together? How do you recommend multiple brands, particularly if you're on multi-platform?
I'll take the first stab at that. It depends on what your goal is. I know that we keep saying it depends. If you're on Amazon and you're trying to optimize your Amazon traffic, having multiple brands is okay, because you can position things and use specific keywords to target different kinds of audience for those particular brand niches. If you're trying to go off of Amazon, that's a lot of work. I mean, it's really hard to get one brand off of Amazon. So I think it depends on what your goal is. If you're just trying to optimize for Amazon, I've seen people do a really successful job having 3-4 different brands in the same niche and just targeting different users for that particular product type.
Yeah, I would say this if are you developing off of Amazon? Is that another website? Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, I don't think if there's not a clear way to develop a brand that's going to be a roof under which all of those products can live, that's going to create definitely some more complication there. If they're all like separate, distinct products, then you're more or less your own marketplace already. So I think there's definitely potential. Sometimes you can look at what products are selling the best, or are there commonalities between some of your best-selling products that you can create a brand that houses those guys. If you're talking tens of thousands of products that are all more or less unrelated, yeah, that's a bigger. I think it's a much bigger question that probably requires some more detailed inquiry. So.
I do think the answer, it depends, is a good one, unfortunately. But I have seen sellers kill it just having one brand with a lot of different types of products under that brand, on Amazon specifically, right? But also, I would say it depends on really what your end goals are. So if your goal is to sell your brand in the end, then you will probably have maybe more trouble selling that brand if there are a lot of different products and a lot of different niches. At the same time, that's not to say that you won't be able to sell it at all. That's because sellers have done that. It just might be certain buyers of brands like the congruency, right? Where it's all under one product line or all under one brand. But that's not to say that it can't be done, because it has been done. It's just to say it's a different means to an end. Like the path there is going to be different. So I would say figure out what your end goal is and maybe adjust based on that.
And that's a really good point. I mean, you have to think about what is your end goal with your business. If your short-term goal is to make a bunch of money right now while Amazon's hot and get a fancy watch or whatever, then there's probably one thing you want to do. If your goal is like put your children through college and have a nice house and all of these things into the future, there's probably a second thing you want to do. But do you want to have a business where you survive off the fees every month, or do you want to have a business that has the potential to sell? Because if you just have 10,000 products through 21 platforms, it's going to be really hard to find anyone who's going to take interest in that, because your company is totally dependent on those platforms. If you don't have a brand, it's harder to say that you have something to sell. If you don't have, me as a buyer, I don't want to buy a company that's dependent on Amazon, because I'm not judging, is Queen Anne Pillow, the company, successful? The question I really have to ask is Amazon going to be successful? And so you're putting all of your future weight into the success of Amazon and not your own company.
All right, we got a question over here.
You guys actually just kind of got into what I was going to ask, but maybe to dive a little bit deeper, there is some evidence or rumblings to be slightly contrarian on the branding, where brand is becoming less important. And I would go maybe to the, Cameron, with what you guys do, data. There's a lot of products out there. Me as a shopper, I don't care what the brand is. A large majority of the products I buy on Amazon, I don't really care about the brand. Now, to your point about long term, what are you really trying to build? So is it are we competing, versus I want to launch 1,000 products. I don't really care the brand because the data says the keywords people are searching for this, and that's what I want to sell because that's what people are buying. Or do I want to sell one product and I'm going to pour my heart and soul for the next 3 years to build the world's best pillow or sunglasses or motorcycle helmet or whatever. Those are, Nike is an obvious brand is really hard. Not a lot of people are going to go buy just tennis shoes, but if I'm buying barbecue gloves or a garlic press, I don't care. So I'm just interested in the perspective of building a brand versus no. I mean, 1,000 products, 1,000 brands. I don't care.
So yeah, I think to clarify, I think his question is brand building even really important? And I know your answer is going to be it depends, but but if you guys could talk about that a little.
I would say it depends on your customer. So I actually really care about brands. And I'll tell you why. It's because I know that certain kinds of brands really care about how they make their products. And certain other kinds of brands really don't. And I will actually throw away products that people give to my kids if they're from off-name brands, especially if they look like off-name brands with no labels from China. It's going right in the garbage. I am not putting that in my kids' hands. They are not going to get even close to their mouths or their skin or anything that could poison them because it's off-brand junk from China. So stuff like that, you have to know your customer and you have to know your product. Maybe barbecue gloves you might be able to get. I wouldn't buy barbecue gloves from an off-name brand actually because that's supposed to protect my skin. So if I'm actually holding something hot, I'm going to look for a brand that I feel like I can trust. So it depends on who your customer is. I am very conscious of what I bring into my house, what I give to my children, what I use for myself. I won't buy off-brand cosmetics. Absolutely not. I know way too much about cosmetics. So certain things like that, I won't buy almost anything but like Fisher-Price toys for my kids. Maybe Mattel is okay. And Hasbro has a good policy as well. But I literally will actually decide which brands are permitted and tell family members they're only allowed to buy those brands for my kids. Because it's that important to me to know that the safety is met. Now, if my husband wants to buy something for himself and it's a piece of junk, great, have fun. But he's the one who will do that, I'm not. So I think that it's also who your customer is.
And I think as price goes up, so does brand concern, right? Barbecue gloves are one thing, right? But what's the consequence of getting a bad pair of barbecue gloves? Maybe it's $10 or $15 or something like that. But what's the consequence of buying a pool cleaner that is filled with some kind of bad chemical, right? There's a huge consequence of that. What's the consequence of buying a bad pillow? There's pain and all sorts of other consequences. So I think it's about consequences. If the consequences go up, I think people become more and more interested in brand, even though they might tell you that they don't. I think anecdotally, it's like kind of like the $50 price range is where people actually start to shop on stuff, and they start to look around and they start to try and find information to verify that the buying decision they're about to make is the right one. And I think stuff under $50, if your products are kind of under $50, is where people are more likely just to buy if that price threshold is comfortable for them.
Yeah, I think for me, I bought a charger for my MacBook, and it was, Apple always charges a premium for their products, and so I decided I was going to take a chance on an off-brand, and probably 2 weeks into it, nice little spark, and I was terrified I just fried my MacBook, and so I will not buy an off-brand charger anymore simply because I really like my MacBook. So let's take another question over there.
How do each of you feel about the importance of a brand spokesperson or figurehead? I know that at least two of you up there are actively doing that in your own brands. And it can be very good to help connect with your customer and with their story, but at the same time it can be a liability. So you have a brand like Apple, right, and they lose Steve Jobs, and I think everybody would agree that right now Apple's not entirely the same company that they were, before Steve Jobs left us. So how do you balance that? How do each of you feel about the importance of kind of a brand leader, the face of the brand?
I mean, are you saying that with talking about Amazon specifically, or just like brand representation in general?
Product or service.
Any kind of product or service. Yeah. So I act as a figurehead for Viral Launch, and so does Casey, and there's a different relationship there. I think it's really important, depending on your brand and depending on the service and the audience that you're reaching out to, having a figurehead that people can connect to and relate with. I would say that having that trumps the risk of having something happen like Steve Jobs passing away and people's perception of Apple changing, because people still have that really good perception of Apple and what Apple was, and because of that, they're still brand loyal to them, right? Partly because of literally just the fact that Steve Jobs was the head of Apple. Even if Apple has like fallen off a little bit, they're still loyal because of what Steve Jobs was. And so I would say having that presence helps connect and helps people relate to somebody or something. It basically helps people, customers, put a face to a name to a brand. Just creates a sense of connection.
Yeah, I would agree. I actually was listening to NPR because that's the fun thing to do when you're commuting to work in Seattle and you were in the car for a while. And there was a study on some chimps, and they were given the option between watching video of the higher social status chimps in the group or drinking their favorite grape juice. And they would choose watching the videos of the higher social status chimps over their favorite juice. But if you were just watching a video of like regular chimps in the group, they would choose the grape juice. So we're hardwired to want to worship people. It's just part of our wiring as who we are as these people in the what is it, the thing from the Matrix, the ugly bags full of mostly water or something like that. So that's how we work at a really basic brain level. And so having that person, having that kind of meaning that gets built into that, people can really relate to that on an emotional kind of visceral level. That's far more important than just having a company meaning. Absolutely. I mean, people love Steve Jobs, like love. The way that you said that before he left us, I was like, yeah, someone loves Steve Jobs. So like people really have like a strong connection to the people that they really admire, and they admire them because they speak to something in themselves. It makes them feel more relevant, more important. And when you can attach a product to that, then they'll buy it.
Yeah, I would say I would argue there could be like a both and type of scenario there, where I know a lot of brands get fearful that, gosh, if our figurehead is out for whatever reason, is the brand going to tank? And that might indeed be true. I don't think it's a reason to diminish what somebody's ability to persuade or to connect with the hearts and the minds of their followership. I don't think it's a reason to take that away from them. I also think, though, that it's important that every member of the team carries a consistent message with both empathy and authority. They know why it is they do what they do. Anybody on the team can respond to the tone and the heartbeat, the purpose of the company, so that if something did happen, somebody else can take it. And yeah, everything has to shift. Things had to shift after Steve Jobs left, but like it was already said, the company is going to riff off of the original foundation and then enter into a new era because they have to. But it was kind of there's several people in the company, though, that can hold that place of knowing why it is they do what they do. And I think that's really the more important part, is that you don't just trust one person. As long as one person knows why we do what we do, that's not good. That's not going to build a healthy company either. If you have several people that can do that. But if there's one person that's like more naturally gifted to be the spokesperson to connect with people either on a public level or or whatever, the social media or whatever format that would be, I think you should let them do that if they have that gifting to be able to do that.
All right, we got a question over here.
So Amazon is constantly changing, and what worked 2 days ago doesn't work today, right? So as soon as you get a new strategy, you have to learn a new strategy again. So what is the number one winning strategy that you think that most people might not know about that has been working for you lately?
Ooh. No one's grabbing for the mic now, are they?
We include a bag of trail mix with every pillow. It's been working really well.
Drop the mic.
So I talked about it already, but keywords, keyword optimization. There are things that are consistent across Amazon's platform, and keywords and keyword optimization is one of them. You'd be surprised the amount of sellers that are not taking advantage of the levers that you have the ability to pull, to control right now. Keywords is one of them. Something like a launch or keyword ranking can be influenced right now. Who knows what it's going to look like tomorrow, right? But right now you have the ability to pull that lever. I would argue also that ManyChat is one of those levers that probably in the same way will not be around tomorrow as it is today. And so it's those things, those levers, you need to be able to recognize what levers you have control of right now, because one of them is going to be gone tomorrow, potentially.
I think that the thing that made us all stop was you said that what people don't know about, but that's exactly, I was going to say keywords, because you can have a really beautiful page and you can tell a really nice story. And I thought it was funny what you said about the changes, because EBC just changed and it appears that it's not backwards compatible in some ways. So it's like, thanks Amazon, that's awesome. So yeah, it changes all the time, and now like doing the same page took twice as long this week. Like, it's just awesome. But that still doesn't change the fact that you need to get people to your page. So you can have a really well converting page, but if you're not getting the traffic, then it doesn't matter. And that really comes down to the same basic fundamental principle, which is that Amazon is a search engine.
I want to say one more thing. So you asked about what people don't know about. But there's a difference between what people don't know about and what people know about but aren't taking action on, right? So a lot of people have heard these things that work, but then go home and don't do anything about it, or don't do it in the right way. So I would say there are not a lot of things rather that people don't know about. There are a lot of things that people know about but don't do anything with. So I would say do those things. Do those things that not a lot of people are taking advantage of.
All right, we've got time for one more question. Does anyone have a question? One more. Right up there. Lab, you want to raise your hand one more time, please? Thank you.
So I have a question. In business or in marketing, whether it's a brick and mortar or e-commerce, it's really important to market to a customer, right? To remarket to it. So how do you own a customer if you're only on a platform of Amazon and not somewhere else?
We put a bag of trail mix in with every pill. We use inserts. With Queen Anne Pillow, we find creative ways to put our company's information and an invitation to visit us at our site in things like our care instructions. So we're just trying to make sure that if someone has an experience with us on Amazon, we also give them an opportunity to have an experience with us somewhere else.
I think as a reseller, you have a really hard time with this because you're not really permitted to put your website or any information about yourself in the product packaging or box. But as a brand owner, you absolutely do, and everyone does. So in fact, if you have certain kinds of labeling, you're actually mandated by law to put a website or your physical address on your box. So you can get that kind of information out to your consumers. So one thing that we just did recently for a client is we found that there was a particular item that they were using for the product. And these are nice products. They're the $50+ range. I mean, people are spending money, they're investing in this product. And there was a particular add-on product that they always seem to use with it. And so we ended up buying that and adding it to it and branding the add-on product too. So whenever they use that, they're also seeing the brand and just kind of always getting it in their mind, however is possible, through inserts, through and the add-on product costs like 30 cents to add to the product, and it's, the price ranges from $50 to $80 a product. So of course we're going to add 30 cents if it helps to build brand awareness. I would say also that your follow-up emails, you can add a lot of character through your follow-up emails and to your storefront. So trying to get more interest in the storefront. Amazon tells you that you're not allowed to include links to Amazon in your emails. It also tells you you're not allowed to use URLs in your follow-up emails. They will absolutely stop your emails if you use URLs that are outside of Amazon. We have never seen them stop us from using URLs inside Amazon. They have let us link to products. They've let us link to the storefront. So if you want to link to a particular landing page on your storefront, we haven't seen them stop it yet. So it's technically not permitted, but they only shut down external to Amazon links at the moment.
All right. I think I'm going to call it. Great job, guys. Thank you so much. Appreciate y'all.